Hello class and welcome to Unit 5 review. This is Professor Wilcox coming to you live from a cafe in Berkeley, California, and joining me tonight is Professor McClellan somewhere in New York and Professor Levesque somewhere in New Jersey. Okay, so we're around, we're here. Tonight we're going to be reviewing some of the concepts from Unit 5, but we're going to pay particular attention to our thoughts about Creative Project 1 and give you some suggestions on Creative Project 2 to get you off to a good start. My first thought is send us your drafts. Come one, come all, send us your drafts. So who wants to lead off tonight with
just looking now.
Do we want to talk about the Creative Project first, or should we?
That's probably what people are most interested in.
I would think so, just from the.
Yeah, there were a couple questions about it as well. I can start walking through it a bit.
Sure.
Let me share my screen. I'm going to show the assignment, and I will just say right off the bat that number one in importance of all things is to read the instructions very carefully. Hang on one second. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to go through and read the instructions, not word for word, but that was probably the biggest issue in Creative Project 1. Is just wherever people missed a point in the directions. That's where they lost points, and it's understandable, but that's also the way that you can guarantee that you don't lose points, is if you just make sure that you've hit every single point. So for example, a lot of the assignment, or not a lot, but a significant number didn't end their melodies with leading tone to tonic. And I'm sure that those people know, or many of them knew what that is and easily could have done it, but just missed that bit in the assignment and failed to do it and lost a lot of points. So number one recommendation, go through the assignment, read the entire thing, start your work, read the entire thing again, keep going, read it again, make your draft, read the entire thing again, double check point by point that you've done everything, and just go like that. It sounds ridiculous, but that's how you will guarantee a good grade. So number one, late policy. We took off, or at least in my case, I took off a lot of points from people for 1-2 days late. It hurts. 10% first day, 5% each additional day. That means if you got a 95 and it's 2 days late, you're down to an 80%. So be on time, plan ahead.
And why do we do this?
We do this because well, it's just the right thing to do. I don't know. Why do we do it?
Because we get several hundred assignments at the same time, and the grading for us as instructors is heavy. I mean, we spend pretty much 3 weeks solid just grading these. It's crazy. So when they come in late, or they don't have people's names on them, I've had assignments with no name on the file and no name in the file. And I have multiple sections, it's literally hundreds of these little files around my computer. I just can't figure it out, and it takes so long to get enough time to figure it out. So we want you to turn them in on time. We want you to label them properly, because it just makes us able to serve you better by returning your assignments quickly and in an orderly fashion.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a major file management issue for us. And so it's for our sake and it's for your sake. So number one, the tasks in front of you, you're composing a short melody, and then the new thing that's happening is that you're adding chords below that. And that's what Unit 5 is all about. And you're not just composing a melody and then some chords, you're coordinating them closely so that the melody works with the chords and sounds good. And then you're recording yourself. And as always, accuracy is more important than speed or style. We're not looking for a Carnegie Hall worthy performance. We're looking for you to demonstrate that you understand what you're doing. It's really a technical, performing should be joyful and wonderful and artistic, but it's also a technical task in this case. And then of course the analysis. As before, you'll submit 2 files, very, very clearly labeled with your name and the section number and the name of the project. And you'll use the Dropbox. And so I don't want to go through all of this because, again, it's up to you to read all of it. But again, you're working with a poem, in this case. So we have a mismatch between the poem listed here and the poem here. Apologies for that. But this is the poem that you need to work with, not the William Carlos Williams. And it's this, so this part of it is similar to last time. You're being inspired by this poem, and then you're going to go through these very specific rubrics of at least 2 sharps or flats. And this was another thing a lot of people missed out on last time. I got a lot of melodies in C major or F major or G major, all of which have less than 2 sharps or flats in the key. So this part is going to be familiar, and so take your feedback from the last project and try to apply it, and and fix what you can.
Just a hint as to how that poem. Just a hint on the Dorothy Parker. You may want to consider that she's being sarcastic, or that she's not entirely serious, because it's kind of really heavy sounding if you don't realize that she has a wicked sense of humor. So I'll just put that out there.
That's a great point. Yeah, we don't want this to be a traumatic experience.
Yes. We don't want it to reflect your feelings of the course.
No. This course has a lot of humor hidden in the nooks and crannies, because we're all pretty funny bunch of guys, or so we like to think. And we're right. We're pretty much right about that. Anyway, yeah, so make sure always to use the right number of beats and everything in your measures. Double check that. Stem direction, ledger lines. We see a lot of errors in this area as well. And it's not something we go through in the course a lot. So you have to just look at examples and make sure that you're following the way music notation should generally look. So then this is the new element. Add chords below your melody, 1 chord per measure. Again, I see last semester, I remember seeing a lot of cases where people wrote chords that were written, they were chords, but they were written in the wrong format. For example, 1 note after another, like da 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 da, with the notes spread out throughout the measure, or people wrote full-on piano arrangements or other things that didn't demonstrate this very simple chord structure that we're asking for. So again, we're not looking for a sort of beautiful, fully fledged piece of music that expresses your creativity 100%. We want you to be creative, but there is a technical side of this, and we want you to be very close to this assignment. So what that means is a chord should be a block chord with 3 notes stacked up on top of each other that shows that you know exactly what, for example, an F major chord looks like and what the notes are in that chord. We want you to demonstrate that. Some of them should be inverted per the assignment. One of them, or some of them should be a 7th chord with 4 separate pitches, at least 3 triads, and at least 1 7th chord. So again, as long as you understand what these things are and you read the directions extremely carefully and you just follow it to the letter, you're going to do very well. And then, of course, your analysis, your performance. It may sound intimidating to have to do a melody and a chord at the same time, but you can do it. Or you can do them separately if you're really not sure. I hear a loud...
Could you mute? Stephen, could you mute?
Oh, yeah,
dishwasher noises.
So it is okay to record your melody and your chord separately. That's totally fine. We want you to be comfortable, and we want you to do, we want it to be accurate and to sound good. So that would just mean, I think the way we did it last semester when people wanted to do it separately is the melody and then the chords all in the same track. Is that right, guys? But if you...
I think we gave them the option to record them separately if that made it easier for them.
Okay. Yeah.
And
so
I'm fine with that. We just want people to hash through. But one thing to emphasize, one thing I often see in this project is people will give me one score with the melody and a separate score with the chords, and that's not what we want. We want one grand staff with a treble and a bass clef with the melody and the treble clef and the chords and the bass. And don't forget to identify each chord with the name and inversion. We see a lot of people who just skip that part and they lose a lot of points. So
yeah, I'm just going to try to find a sample of that texture in the lesson. I think it's in Unit 6, just to jump ahead, just to show you what your score should sort of look like. Okay. Waiting. Oh, actually, this isn't it. I'm sorry. Scratch that. It should be a grand staff like this, treble on top, bass on the bottom, and then there should be a single line of notes on the top and stacked up chords on the bottom. That's basically what we're looking for. And again, clear and clean, good sound, accuracy above all. Does not have to be fast. It can be painfully slow as long as it's accurate. And then the analysis. And I think people did pretty well on these in my experience in general, but it's just all about really specifically connecting what you composed to your ideas and being very cite evidence. That's really key. We don't want vague statements like, I thought my melody was really great and it connected to this poem because I was just really feeling it. I mean, that's an extreme example, but we want it to be connected note for note and note for idea very, very precisely.
yeah, I think one of the more successful ones I see, the student will say something like, I chose to leap up a fifth at this point in my melody to reflect the leap, one of the people in the poem we're talking about, or I chose to move all in stepwise motion very deliberately in this section to reflect the tromping through the snow and the Robert Frost crop. They talk about what specifically they did in the music to either capture an effect or capture emotion or capture their understanding of the text. But just making random assertions doesn't work. And also don't make lists. I had a C, and then I had a D, and then I had 3 Fs, and I added flats in there because flats make it fatter. I mean, flats don't make it fatter. Sharps don't make it happier. None of that has any impact whatsoever. So don't say things like that. But just talk about what you did and how that reflects what your understanding of the text is. So when we say refer to the text, we mean refer to the text of the poem with musical choices. Somebody asked that on Piazza.
So I can show you a quick example of the textures Robin was talking about. So if you can see my screen right now, you can see the chords stacked up on the bottom. I made an A major chord and then just a simple melody up the top. And this is the texture that we want to see with the chord potential, or hopefully lining up with the first note of the melody. And this is going to help you too, because this is going to help you make sure that your melody is lined up properly with the chord. If you're doing some weird things like we see sometimes where the chord looks like this would be something you want to avoid. We definitely want it stacked up. And what's harder about this, if you're trying to make a melody match up with that particular chord, you might start with a C sharp here and think, oh, well, it's a C sharp over an A, but if you don't see the D that's happening over here, you won't necessarily know that the chord is actually A, D, F. and there's no C sharp in that chord. So again, just try and make sure that the chords are stacked up underneath, and it will help us so be correcting the assignment, and it will also help you to make sure that you're doing a good job making those melody notes match up with the chords.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything else to add about this. Did I miss anything important? There's a lot of info in this file, so
just a piece of general advice: whenever you're writing, whenever you're setting a poem to music, make sure that you speak the poem first and try and get a feel for the rhythm. I don't have the poem in front of me because I'm not at the rubric. Hold on.
There's
good in our bad ways.
There's little,
okay.
Little in taking or giving, little in water or wine.
There's little in taking or giving. You don't want to make a melody that goes, there's little in taking, giving. There's a natural prosody to it. There's little in taking or giving, or there's little in taking or giving. But you want to make sure you're not emphasizing very odd syllables. There's little in taking or giving. So make sure you take some time to speak through the melody.
Absolutely.
That it sounds like something that you would want to listen to and not like a malfunctioning robot, which is entertaining but not correct.
Absolutely. If it feels weird to say it, then it's probably not the most natural approach. So it's really speaking it aloud. Even if English isn't your first language, you'll know if it's not flowing the right way. Just a general note about the audio. And it may be especially tempting in this one because you're dealing with the melody and the chords. I got several people who used automatic MIDI playback for their audio, which means that you have entered the notes into some kind of program like Noteflight or Finale or GarageBand, and then you've just pressed play and it plays your melody automatically. That's not allowed. And it may seem that it's very hard to tell the difference between a live, a really played melody that as we're asking versus this automatic playback. But trust us, it's immediately evident. And if we're in any doubt, we go and put it into something like GarageBand, and it just shows exactly what the waveform looks like. And it's crystal clear that it's been played by automatic playback, and then we give you 0 points. So don't let that be you. We don't want to see it. You don't want us to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, we also have like a mock trial. We'll send it around and everyone will listen to it and go, nope, that's not real. And, it's very easy to tell. My favorite is to take the waveform and throw it into Photoshop, and I can mark exactly how it lines up visually. So it's just, I was just saying, it's just not worth it. You lose all the points for sound quality and all the points for the performance. So that'll take you down, 20 points right off the top.
Yeah. Just
hash through it. It's fine. You'll be better hashing through it than playing back.
Yeah. Even if you don't play it well, you'll get more points than if you fake it. I think some people legitimately didn't understand the difference, and that, so that's why we're emphasizing it here. You must actually physically make a motion to create each note, even if you're using an electronic instrument in your computer, like the pop-up piano. That's fine, because you're pressing the key for each note that you have to play. That's what we want. And we get people who play real instruments. We get people who sing. That's wonderful. More power to you. But that's certainly not required if you want to use the on-screen piano is completely fine as well. Just no Noteflight, no Finale, no GarageBand, none of that. So I think that's probably it for this. Anything else we should add? Should we talk about the unit? Anybody want to? I already have. Oh wait, no, I don't. I had this assignment open before. Anybody else want to jump in on one of these?
I just opened up homework 26. Let me see how that looks. Okay, leave my screen share. Okay, so we have triad identification and we're looking for major, minor, augmented, or diminished. So what we're looking for, and thankfully the reminder right there, is we're looking to count thirds. So this is an exercise that as long as you have either an image in your head in front of you or a printed out actual piano keyboard in front of you, you should be able to do pretty quickly. Basically, you're looking at combinations of 4 plus 3. So if I take a look at A and I see D, F sharp, A. The major triad is a major third on the bottom and a minor third on top. So my major third I know is 4 half steps. So D to F sharp, D to D sharp, to E to F sharp is my 4 half steps. F sharp to A is 3 half steps, G, G sharp, A. So I know I have a major third on the bottom and a minor third on top, making this major. Not the only way to find it. A lot of people are going to use the does it fit on the tonic note of a major scale method? So some of you may look at this and say, well, wait a second, I know that's major because D major has an F sharp in it, and that's D, F sharp, A. Also a valid way to do it, although what you're going to find is you still need to be able to maneuver away from those to find augmented and diminished. Just to give you an example from that, hold on, let me find something. So check out D in this example here. If we were to count this, we would get G to B is 4 half steps, and B to D sharp is 4 half steps. So a major third plus a major third, making it augmented. If you were to use the method of building a triad on the base note of a major scale, you would say, okay, in the key of G, I have a G natural, a B natural, and a D natural. Wait a second, something's wrong, that's a D sharp. So the next step when using that method is to say, how does it differ from what I expected? In this case, it's a half step higher. It's a half step bigger. Whenever you think bigger, you think augmented. So the D being a D sharp means that the top interval is bigger than it should be. Therefore, it's been augmented. And diminished is like minor with the top note lowered by a half step. If you figured out, for instance, this one in C, if you said, wait, C minor has C, E flat, and G, then you would say, well, wait a second. G should be G natural, but it's G flat, it's half step lower. Therefore, it must be diminished. And if you're counting half steps, you'd know that C to E flat is 3 half steps, and E flat to G flat is another 3 half steps, making it a minor third plus a minor third. Let me just check out the second page. Building triads. It's the same idea in reverse. You build your snowman, line, 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 or space, 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 and then you add the accidentals that are needed in order to make it. Let me see. Hold on, let me make sure I'm doing this properly. Yes. And then you have the accidental that's needed to push it into that. So we start with, for instance, here, a G minor chord. So we would want to figure out that G minor has a B flat, G, B flat, D, and we can get that either by figuring out the key of G minor has 2 flats, or we can count half steps, 3 from G to B flat to D being 4, a minor third plus a major third. And so the answer for the third here would be, fifth would be D natural, and that's how we would make our G minor chord. So it's basically the same idea as before, just in reverse. Instead of counting to figure out what the chord is, you're making the chord by counting. I think that's enough on that one. If anyone else would like to jump in.
I have the next one open, so I'm happy to take a look at it. So now we're taking those triads that you now know and love from assignment number 26, and we are putting them in the context of a key. And this is sort of how you're going to end up using and knowing these chords in most cases. So this is where, just as an aside, like if you're somebody who wants to write a song and put chords to it, this is where all of the skills and knowledge from the course are starting to come together into something really practical that you can use. Let's say you're writing a song in A major. Now you can know what the chords are that you have to choose from to put with your song. Or if you've already written some chords, now you know what to call them. So you know how to write them out. So this is getting to be very handy. But anyway, there's some technical stuff to handle first. So there's 2 tasks for each chord, and first is the type of chord that you're looking at, and the second is the harmonic function. So let's do those separately. The type is, if you can do homework 26, you can do this homework, except that you now have a key signature and you have to remember that, for example, this F is sharp because of this F sharp up here, because that means that all Fs are sharp in the key. So don't be misled by the placement on the staff. When you have a key signature, every note of that type is affected by that sharp. So you can just do the same skill where you have D to F would normally be a minor third, but the F is sharp, so that makes it a major third. The F to A would normally be a major third. The sharp makes that a bit smaller to a minor third. Major third on the bottom, minor third on the top. You have a major triad. So then, as always with these assignments, make sure that you're following the rubric exactly to enter the music as or enter the answer as you so the computer can read it. Then the harmonic function. This is really easy in one sense because you can simply look at the bottommost note, and if you could do the harmonic function assignments in earlier units, you can do them here because the root note, as it happens, is always on the bottom in these examples because they're in root position. And I don't know if we've covered that yet, but basically, if you know what harmonic function the note D is in the key of A major, that's your answer. So just as a quick review, A is the tonic, going up from the tonic A, B is the supertonic, C sharp is the mediant, D is the subdominant, and therefore this is a subdominant chord. And then you go to the next chord, and that's pretty much how you do this. I don't want to spend too much more time with it. Page 2 is the same whole deal, now in minor. So now you're dealing with the raised leading tone that's not in the key signature, but it is kind of a built-in part of the chord, part of the key, especially when you're dealing with chords, thus the term harmonic minor. So I won't go into that for now because I want to make sure we get through all of this, but we're here to answer your questions.
Yeah, remember to ask questions on the forum because we're watching out. So if you have something you want us to hit, then definitely leave us a note.
So should we jump over to the next homework while we wait for the flood of questions?
Sounds good.
Okay, I think I've got that up here. Hold on. So here we get into inversions, and there are 3 positions that you can have these chords in: root position, first inversion, or second inversion. And right here you can see that they're notated as 5-3, 6-3, or 6-4. The trick to telling what inversion is, it's actually very, very simple. You look for the gap. You look for the shape. So in this particular first chord here, I see that there's a gap on top. That gap on top means it's a first inversion chord. And the other thing to remember is that wherever the gap is, the root is above the gap. So just by glancing at this and keep in mind my shapes, I know that this is a G chord in first inversion. So now over here, the gap is between the bottom 2 notes. That means it's second inversion. And in this case, it's a D chord, because again, I'm always looking to the top of that gap. And if there is no gap, and if it's line, line, minor, space, 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 which none of these happen to be, then it's a root position chord and the root is on the bottom. To figure out the type, you need to momentarily at least move this back in your mind into root position. So to find if this is major or minor, I need to count up from G to B flat to find out the kind of third. In this case, G, G sharp, A, B flat, a minor third, 3 half steps, B flat, B natural, C, C sharp, D, 4 half steps for a major third. So this first one is a minor triad in first inversion. Some students make the mistake of counting up from here, and then I get B flat to D is 4 half steps, major third, and D to G is a perfect fourth. So what kind of chord is that? That's not a chord. And then they get a little bit confused. Remember that you always start counting up from the root, not up from the bass. Now that we have inversions, the bass is the lowest note, the root is the start of the chord. They're not necessarily the same thing. They're only the same thing in root position. page. So here's a root position chord. You can see it goes line, line, line. When that happens, I know it's not inverted, and the bottom note is the root. Over here, this is the first inversion chord because we have a gap at the top, a second inversion chord, a gap on the bottom. And that's the best way to try and identify these, is to try and recognize the shape and the position. I think that's all I have to say about that one for you to chime in.
That sounds good to me. Seventh chords. So over to homework 29. It's all the same principles, but now you have an extra note to contend with. So if whatever you know about triads still applies to the bottom three notes, and you just have to remember how to deal with the top note, which is helpfully color-coded here as the seventh. So basically what are you doing here? You are building a chord and adding accidentals as needed. So let me see here. Hang on, I had a brain melt a minute ago. Yeah, so you're dealing in this whole section with dominant seventh chords, which always have a certain profile. In other words, a certain stack of intervals. It's a major triad on the bottom, and then a minor third above the fifth on the top, or a minor seventh from the root of the chord, which in this case is always the bottom red note. So you can do all the same things you did with triads. You need a major triad. So B to D is normally a minor third. You need to raise the D with a sharp. Then D sharp to F is going to be a diminished, or sorry, diminished third, which cannot work. So we need to raise the F to F sharp to make a nice minor third. And then last step is to check your interval at the top. Do you have the way I always think of this, and again, with a lot of this, there's different ways. Each person sort of has their own approach or their own style. The way I always think of dominant seventh chords is that there's a minor third between the fifth and the seventh. It's just, you can also think of the minor seventh from the root up to the seventh. But for me, the quickest way is to check that we now have an F sharp here to A, and that is indeed a minor third. Now dealing with flats over here, you're given the D flat. Normally it would be a minor third, D to F, but this is now a major third, so you don't have to mess with the F. F to A is a major third, so you do have to lower the A to A flat. And then A flat to C is a major third, but you need a minor third, so you have to add a flat to the C as well. This is one of those cases where a C flat is appropriate instead of a B natural. So that's the idea there, just trying to not spend too much time on this. And then diminished seventh chords, you basically need all minor thirds. So just make sure you know how to do your intervals. F sharp to A is a minor third, A to E is a minor third already, E to C, or C to E is a major third, so you need to lower the E to E flat. And you're going to get some weird mixtures of sharps and flats in these, and that's okay. Have I missed anything with these? I'm just trying to sort of summarize. I think that's it. And again, just make sure you're following the instructions in the assignment to make sure that the answers are recorded correctly. You need to spell out the note names like this: A sharp, A flat, little dash, exactly as written. So that's it. Maybe we've covered it.
So should we do like a last call for questions?
Sure.
On Unit 5? And any subsequent thoughts on the concept of chords or the concepts needed to be covered in Creative Project 2?
I think that's it.
I think
Okay.
so. Well, someone's like rushing.
We're entering the home.
Just trying to type. Like, oh my God, gotta get it in. Okay, so sounds good, and we're all gonna sign off for now, and we'll talk to you next time, Unit 6. Bye-bye.